Hey, what's up, guys? Check this bike out. This one is a 1972 Suzuki TS185. Picked this up about a month ago on Facebook Marketplace. It was a really good deal. I couldn't pass it up. It was local, so it was a no-brainer for me. But this bike is pretty much complete. It's kind of shabby. I didn't clean anything off yet. I wanted to give you the full effect on how it looked when I picked it up. It looks like it has aftermarket Preston Petty fenders on it, front and rear. The back end here has seen better days. They got bungee cords holding the fender onto the frame. So I'm going to have to see what's missing there. There's probably a bracket or something that goes over top of this. The tail light is all messed up, as you can see. It's missing the actual lens itself. It does have a West Virginia plate from '82 though, which is kind of cool. Here's the Preston Petty fender on the back. The chrome looks to be in pretty good shape on the rims. It's just crusty with dirt. It's not a whole lot of rust. Like I said, I want to just show you what the condition's like here before I give it a pressure wash and start tearing into this thing. But really, it's overall a complete bike. Let me see if I can get this open. This was kind of stuck earlier. So we got the oil tank here for the oil injection. This must be, I think that's a relay possibly, or a rectifier. I'll have to look and see how these Suzukis are set, if it's anything similar to Yamaha. This is actually the first Suzuki I've worked on my channel here. It's got a newer battery. The previous owner did say he had this thing running for a little bit, but then it lost spark or something and he couldn't get it running again, so that's where I'm going to step in. But that's a new battery. I'll just probably end up having to charge that up. The fuel tank on the outside is in really good shape, aside for some paint. Obviously, this is all original, but the inside is pretty rough. You can see that's completely rotted away, so I'll probably look for a new cap. And I will do the vinegar trick here with this tank as well. And from what I can tell, though, up under here looks pretty solid, but you never really know until you let that vinegar sit in there for a little while. That's when the pinholes start coming out. But we'll see. We'll worry about that once we get to that point. So I'm sure I'll be tearing that carburetor apart, throwing that in the ultrasonic, and we'll do a little test for compression. Worry about all the other stuff before we'll try to get it started first before we worry about anything else major. But yeah, we'll go for the basics. We're going to try to get spark and get this thing running. Gauges are in really good shape. It's only showing a little over 3,200 miles. Who knows if that's correct? And this thing could have been unhooked down here and not working, but front rims a little worse shape than the rears, and got a little more rust on it. Some steel wool should be able to get most of that off, I would think. It does have a key, which is nice. And I think the neutral light was working, yeah. So, yeah, I could use a degrease. There's a lot of buildup down here. We'll get all that cleaned up. The cover just pops on and off. I'm gonna have to get something to fasten that on there, but we got the oil reservoir tank for the injection. The tires are something I've never seen before. These are actually Carlisle brand tires, Aggressor. Never heard of that. I actually looked it up, and I guess they were tires that came out in the early 70s, so these are like probably 50-year-old tires on this thing on the rear. Luckily they're holding there, so I don't have to wrestle those off. But yeah, we got the clutch is kind of sticky. That could use a little bit of lubing, I'm sure. We got the switch here, seems to work somewhat. We'll worry about that later, obviously. The throttle's not stuck. Like I said, the previous owner did monkey with this for a little bit before I got it, but the front brake is really tight. Barely moves that arm down there, so that's going to need addressed. But other than that, she turns over, she's not frozen. So it's got some compression in there, but I'm sure it's probably not a whole lot. I'm able to do that pretty easily. So, and the spark plug's in there still. Brake pedal could use a little rebending there, as you can see. It's all curled up under the peg. But other than that, she's not too shabby. So like I said, first things first, we'll start with the basics. We'll see if we got spark. If we do, I'll check compression, and then we'll get that carburetor cleaned up, because I'm sure it's going to need it. We'll put an auxiliary fuel tank on just to get it some go juice, and we'll see if she can get it fired up here. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, first thing I'm going to do is get this tank out of the way and get the plug out. We'll get some oil down the spark plug hole just to make sure that that's all lubed up in there. And we're going to try to get some spark out of this thing. It's pretty crusty under the tank here. Over there. Got an NGK B7HS. I'll have to see if that's the correct plug for this bike. It looks to be in pretty new condition though. So even though he did say this was running at one point fairly recently, I figured it's probably a good idea just to get a little more oil down there just in case. Give it a couple kicks here. Zoom in on that. Let me get this key in the on position. Okay, let's see if we got anything here. Oh yeah, so we got spark. Just make sure in the other position we got it. Yep. And off. Okay. So that's working. We got spark. All right, so now that we confirmed it's got good healthy spark, I am going to hook up a compression tester to this and see what kind of numbers we're gonna get. So anyone that normally watches my channel has seen that my compression tester seems to read on the low side most of the time, at least from what I can tell. And regardless of the low readings, bikes usually end up running pretty decently. A lot of times I think the rings are just stuck on the piston, and then once they're fired up, they loosen up and you get better compression. But I always like to do it just as a baseline, even if my tool is reading on the lower end. Okay. So I'm gonna make sure the choke is off, and we go full throttle here. And zoom in on that. Let's see what we get here. Yeah, not too good. Like I said though, after I get these things running, I'm thinking the rings will free up, if that is the case, and improve that compression. But I think I'll dump a little oil down there, and we'll try it again, see if it shoots up. Then we'll know for sure if it's the rings. So let's see what happens. I think all the bikes I've done here on this channel, I have yet to have one that registers over 100 PSI right off the bat. Okay, so we got some oil down in there. Let's see if that goes up. Choke off, full throttle. And we look to be about in the same area, maybe just a little bit higher. So this is only showing roughly 65, 70-ish PSI, which is pretty bad. But like I said, this tool I think reads low, and I think once you get them running a little bit, the rings loosen up and compression goes up with it. So I always think back to the DT2 that I have that was only showing like roughly 50 PSI when I first did the compression test on that. But once I got it running, it runs and pulls really strong now. So hopefully the same will happen with this once we get it going. And first though, I think we're gonna tear into this carburetor. From what it sounded like, the kid I bought this from, he wasn't real sure what to do with the carburetor. I don't think he even had this thing off. So my guess is it's probably gummed up in here pretty decently. So we'll tear that out, take a peek, probably throw it in the ultrasonic, and hopefully it's just as simple as getting this carburetor cleaned up and a little bit of fuel and she'll be ready to go. Removal's pretty straightforward. We got these two nuts here on the cylinder side that are going to come out, and on the airbox side we have this band here with this just held in with this screw. And obviously I'll have to take the slide out. I'll be able to just pull it out this way. It's pretty accessible on this bike actually. Sorry for the background noise. The furnace just kicked on. It's that time of year again. That was already loose. That was barely on there. Okay. Makes it a little easier. Looks like a new slide on there. It's extremely clean. Kind of nice when they come out like that and they're not frozen. Ooh, okay. It all came apart way too easy. All right, let's get this cracked open. See what it looks like on the inside. All right, let's see what we got going on in here. pretty pumped to actually be working on a Suzuki, and this is my first one since I've had my 79 RM80, which was my first dirt bike back when I was 13. This is the first Suzuki I've had since then, believe it or not. It's kind of cool to go back and work on one of these after having it been so long since I've owned one. Yeah, that bike was pretty interesting to learn a clutch on for how peaky it was. The power band was like a light switch. You either had no power or it had to be in the power band and it was full power, and it was enough to scare a 80-pound 13-year-old and myself. But I learned on that bike, so it probably made me a better rider overall in the long run. But I always keep an eye out for those 79 RMs, specifically the 80, and you never see them pop up just because they've all been ridden into the ground, I'm sure. And the ones that I have seen, like at Vintage Days, have been priced astronomically, so don't think I'll be finding any of those anytime soon, unless by pure luck, but always looking. That's on there pretty good. There we go. Trying to preserve that gasket. Come off at one piece. Okay. Wow, that's actually pretty clean in there. That is not what I was expecting. It's really clean in there. Bone dry. I wonder if he was just not getting fuel. I'm assuming he probably got it running a little bit on starter fluid, but it doesn't look like there's been any fuel in here. That O-ring's rock hard. Float valve seems to be okay. Gasket's in good shape too. All right. I guess I'll get the pilot out and the main jet here. We'll remove that, just see what kind of condition that's in. But by the looks of this, it's probably going to be in pretty decent shape, but you never know. I can't believe how easy this stuff is coming apart. No rubber tip on this one. Let's see if I can get that pilot out of there. It seems to be coming out nice and easy too. We got some crust coming out with that. See if I can read that number on there. Looks like either a 25 or a 125. Yep, 25 pilot. And it looks pretty clean. I could see through all the openings there. It wasn't even tight. Nothing to that one, that's open. That sits on the top there. This looks really clean. I don't even think I need to put it in the ultrasonic. I think I might though, just to get the outside cleaned up. Let's get this air screw out of here too. So let's see. how many turns out we are. So there's 1 turn, 1 1/4. Sometimes there's a little O-ring down there too. That looks pretty nasty. But the inside's looking pretty clean. But it won't hurt anything. We'll throw it in, clean it all up just in case there is something in the idle air circuit or something in here that could be blocked. You never know. We'll throw it in, dunk it in for a while, and get back to this. Almost forgot about this. It's almost kind of like the Yamaha I just got done working on, 360. See if I can get this open here. That looks like a 130. It's 130 main. Before we put that in the ultrasonic, I'm going to try to pull this gasket off without ripping it. I don't want that going in the tank too, because I think that'll kind of expand and do weird stuff when it's in that chemical. So I'm going to try to save this. Alright, so I'll just start putting parts in here. So the floats appear to be floating. That's good. Alright, let's crank this up. Put the temperature way up there. Try to get all that gunk off the outside. And we'll let this run for, I don't know, 35 minutes or so, and then check on it. All right, here we go. All right, it's just finished up. Let's take a look and see how this came out. Stuff's pretty hot still. I'm gonna let that cool off a bit. It got most of the junk off the carburetor. Way cleaner than before. So I'll just kind of rinse all this off in the sink and get a brush and kind of just get the loose stuff off that's left over on there and put her back together. All right, we got the carb all rinsed off, and I'm just going to blow some air through these openings here just to get any leftover junk that might be in there still. Through these idle air circuits here and through where the pilot sits. And it really was pretty much clean though from the get-go on the inside at least, but the outside looks a lot better now too. So let's get some air in there, and then we'll throw this back together and throw it back on the bike. Make sure these are in the up position, because I've made that mistake before. Put those in wrong, upside down on a my DT360. It's up. Okay. All right, we're ready to throw this back on the motorcycle. All right, we're getting ready to put the carb back on. Before I do that though, I'm gonna open up the air box here and get a look at the air filter. Lack of air filter. Looks like we just got the cage. So, I'm gonna have to get the foam element. And for now, I'll just leave this out. I just wanna make sure this is clean and not sucking in any junk when I go to fire this thing up. So something I noticed when I was slipping that carb on, I was looking at the fins here, which are kind of bent up. So I'm guessing somebody probably had this off before. I was wondering why they're bent down. Usually they're bent up when you're trying to pop this off the studs. But I also noticed right in between the head and the top of the cylinder there, where there should be a head gasket, I just see a gap and I can see the dowels in there, so I don't know if there's even a head gasket on this thing. I'm not going to try to start it. I think I might pop off the head just to get a look at that and see what kind of condition that's in, if there even is a gasket in there. It almost looks like there's not. But I'm going to clean that up a little bit, see if I can get a better look, but I am going to pop that head off, I think. Yeah, so we just got these 14 millimeters here. Hopefully they come out nice and easy. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, this thing's gonna pop right off. There's no head gasket on this thing. Somebody took that apart and did not put a head gasket back on. I can't believe it even had as much compression as what I was reading on my tool. That's crazy. I think it was like close to 65 or 70. I have to go back and look, but that's nuts. Get a little closer look at that piston. A lot of carbon in there. From what I can tell there, the cylinder feels okay. That's just the very top though. But yeah, no head gasket. That's nuts. Well, I guess I gotta order one of those before I try to start this. I'll get the air filter element as well. And we'll see what else I need to get on here. Might as well order all at once. Interesting. So that all looks good. The cylinder, I can't feel any deep scratches or anything in there, so that's good. I don't feel any lip at the top, like where the ring will meet the top here. That's all smooth too. So I think what I'll do is we'll get the head gasket, throw it back together, maybe do another compression test, see how it runs. And if it's still really low on compression, it might just need rings, and I could just hone the cylinder possibly. But we'll try the easy stuff first. Get the head gasket, throw it on, and then try it again. So it looks like for this air filter, I'm just gonna have to find, just cut some element that fits this, because they really don't make this exact one anymore that'll fit in here. So I'm just gonna get some air filter element material, pop this off here, and then just cut the fit. Obviously I'll be cleaning this up first. And I already ordered the head gasket ring for this. So the air filter element finally came in, so I'm gonna have to cut this up, measure it to fit this, cut it up, and oil that up. And I got the head gasket ring too, so I'm getting ready to put all that back together now, and maybe we can get this thing fired up in this video. Just gonna get a rough estimate of how much I need to cut here for this. We'll say 7.5 inches by 3 3/4. Right about at this crease right here, and 3 3/4 wide. We'll go to about there. Okay. See how this fits here. Get this cleaned off a little bit before I put that in there. Got all the heavy stuff knocked off. Let's see how this fits in here. That looks pretty good. I wonder if I should put another layer on top of that, if it should have two. And it does fit in there pretty snug. It's probably better than any of the filters they had back in '72, so I think I'll just go with this. I'll just oil this up and we'll pop it in. Just put the retaining band on there again. I think we're set. So I've got the cylinder head cleaned up, got as much carbon off as I could, and I got a little dab of grease on this head gasket ring just to hold that in place. So when I flip it over, it will stay in place. And cleaned off some of the carbon on the piston too. Can't see any numbers on there, but I do see the arrow, which is pointing in the right direction. So I'm just gonna leave that be. Like I said, we'll get this on and we'll try to do another compression test to see if it goes up, and try to get it started too. Got my bolts lubed up with some anti-seize. Doing a little research online when I was looking for the manual and stuff for this. I guess how I thought was the gap was wrong in there. I guess that's supposed to be there. Now this was missing that ring for the head gasket, so I don't think it was supposed to be that much play in there, or or gap, I should say. So I guess it's somewhat normal to see a little bit of space in between the cylinder head and the cylinder itself. We torque these down to 18 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern here. A little bit at a time. All right, they're all torqued down. I'm gonna get a auxiliary fuel tank, hook it up to the carburetor, get some fuel in here, and we're gonna see if we can get it to start up. All right, I got some 32-to-1 premix going in here. We're gonna put a little bit in, make sure that carburetor doesn't leak. Let's see what happens here. All right, let me turn the valve on and get a little closer look at the carburetor. All right, turning the valve on, let's see what happens here. Fuel's getting into the bowl now. Nothing leaking so far. So far, so good. All right, I'm gonna give it a couple kicks, see if we can get some life out of it. Key on. Give it a little choke. There we go. Trying. So I'm not having any luck getting this thing to run, so I decided to run another compression test here, and it looks like we're still really low, even with the head gasket ring in there now. So it's probably most likely the rings are shot, and it just doesn't have enough compression to start it. It kind of, I could tell it wanted to. I'm getting some smoke out of the exhaust a little bit, but I just can't get it to run at all. So I'm gonna mess around with a little bit more and see if I can try some other things, maybe get some starting fluid and see if that helps getting it going a little bit. And we might be taking that cylinder off after all. All right, this time I dumped a little fuel down the spark plug hole. Let's see if we have any luck. Nope. Don't want to go. Yeah, so she just doesn't want to fire up even with gas down the cylinder. I'm really thinking that it's just got such low compression that it can't fire up. As you can kind of hear it wants to, and it probably doesn't have enough to keep that fire going. So I think what I'll probably do is take this, we'll take the cylinder off and look at getting maybe new rings. We'll measure the piston out and stuff and see how far out of spec it is. And hopefully it's just rings we can do and just rehone the cylinder. So I guess that's going to be the next step. Compression, I've had the other bikes run with like 50 before. I don't know, maybe this is just not enough for this bike, this particular bike. So we're going to leave off on this one, guys. I think the next step for me is going to be taking that cylinder apart, like I said, get some measurements on the piston, the rings, and the bore. Hopefully I can get away with just doing rings and rehoning that cylinder. It'd be nice if I don't have to replace any of that stuff, other stuff. So trying to keep the cost down on this and get this thing going. But we're making some progress. I think it just doesn't have enough compression to fire up. I mean, it is reading 50, and I've had other bikes read around 50, but even with gas down the spark plug hole and confirming that the spark plug does have fuel on it, so I know it's getting gas. It just doesn't want to pop. So we'll address that in the next one, and I guess we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.